afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Teresa Larson, host of My New Normal podcast. I am here with Dr. Kate Hendricks Thomas. Is that how you like to say it? Thomas?
Yeah,
Hendricks?
that's perfect.
Okay,
Hendricks Thomas.
Yes. So just Dr. Kate, I actually like to call her Dr. Resilience. We'll get into that. I am extremely honored to have you on this podcast, Kate. Kate is a dear friend and someone who has been a colleague for a long time and someone who's been also a mentor for me. And so welcome, Kate.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Where are you located right now?
So I am in Alexandria, Virginia, where we just moved. So this is a new city, new home. Lots of change in the last few months.
So Alexandria is a beautiful place, very nice town. The last time, I've had some memories of Alexandria, go back to the Marine Corps days of getting ready for the basic school and freezing my butt off and going out in Alexandria. That was a fun place.
Yes.
So beautiful area. I am in sunny California. Never really gets cold here. I'm in my garage. Okay. So I have nice placement of things. You'll see my detergent here. My Movement RX sign that was taken from a building recently, not illegally, and books here. And I see your book back there. We're going to talk a little bit about, Kate is accomplished so much in her life, but it's really not the accomplishments that make up her. It's who she is. And I'm very excited for all of the audience to listen to her and her story and her knowledge, because all of these things she's done is just like, it's who she is. Like she's much more than what she does, but she exudes just resilience, helping eliminate suffering in others, and educating people on how to live happier, better lives, specifically veterans. And we both are veterans. And so I want to tell you a little bit about how Dr. Kate and I met. We were both in the Marine Corps. We met, I think, in Virginia, Charlottesville,
yes.
Charlottesville, Virginia. And I met her there. She was an NP, military police officer in the Marine Corps, and I was engineer. And connected there. I think it was like a weekend fun event. I wasn't living in Charlottesville, but I think you were. Were you living in Charlottesville?
No, I think we were all just back to visit.
Okay. So we spent a weekend together, and I'd been in touch with you since then through Semper Sarah and doing some stuff with Team RWB. So we both spoke together on, not the Team RWB platform, but when Semper Sarah had her seminars with Team RWB, and got to know you a little bit better there, which was awesome.
Yeah. And
you were on your journey. So you'd gotten out of the Marine Corps at that point. And we're on your journey of getting your PhD.
Yes, I at that point, not all who wander or are lost, but I was doing a little bit of wandering at that juncture. I left the Marine Corps in 2008, and my intention was to go back to school and craft a new civilian existence. That was supposed to be an easy thing. I was prepared. I had admission to I had a plan, but I had no idea how hard transition was actually going to be. And I didn't understand that there really was no becoming a normal girl again. And I was having a really tough time. And I went into the reserves so I could kind of keep contact with the Marine Corps, which was my family, my life, my identity at that time. And I did my master's degree, and then I decided that I wanted to go to school for a ridiculously long period of time. And I was really in love with public health, and I was passionate about wellness, specifically because my brother was injured in Iraq. We were both Marines in Iraq actually at the same time. And he had always been an athlete. So I got passionate about adaptive wellness, specifically adaptive yoga, and I was interested in working with veterans. When I started doing that a little bit, what I realized was it wasn't just, can you help someone who once had perfect balance and two legs practice yoga? It was about the mind, the body, the spirit. It was much broader than just physical health.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started studying health promotion and public health. And I got so passionate about all of the ways that we can get in between problems by paying attention to causation and things that are correlated with those problems. So when you and I were speaking together, we were speaking about, hey, this is our transition. You can do
Right.
things more intelligently if you try A, B, and C. Don't be as dumb as we were.
Those are such good memories.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to hear more of your professional track and what you're studying and some of the things you've written. Because especially for veterans listening and anyone who knows that they should have a mindset shift. Like I like how you use mental fitness. Veteran or not, can very much learn from the things that you've written and done. But it's just been really cool to see you grow. And like, well, Kate and I have never lived in the same area. She's always been on the East Coast, crushing it in the academic world with being an author and a speaker. I've been out here in San Diego and just supporting each other along the journey, and been in touch through all the trials and tribulations of ups and downs of transitioning from the Marine Corps and figuring ourselves out. And so it's been, well, we've never lived together. It's always been, or lived together, lived in the same place. We've been able to support each other, which I think is what's really cool about true friendships, is that you can pick up the phone after maybe not speaking for a year or even 6 months or a couple years, and it's like nothing was lost. There's no regret. There's no animosity. And it's been very awesome to watch your progression as a professional and also as a new mom. So that's another shared experience that Kate and I have is, so you have a beautiful son. She has a beautiful son. And I just had a baby too, a year and a half ago, and sharing the toddler stories.
Oh, yeah.
So I
And the
want to,
sleepless newborn stories.
yeah, the sleepless newborn stories and the what are we doing running a business story and all the things. So being a boy mom and running a business and being a professional and speaking, like that's no joke. And so this woman, you got to find your tribe. And so Kate's in the tribe for me, because not many people get that. But one of the icebreaker questions I have for you, Kate, and everyone gets a little bit different one, but what is your favorite book to read, Matthew, at night?
Oh, well, I like to read him anything by Eric Carle. The Very Quiet Cricket is what we're reading right now.
Cute. I love it. That's awesome. I'm reading, Magnus picks the books at the moment, but he's a book hound. His favorite book is The Five Little Pumpkins.
Oh, that's cute. The one where they're on the fence and running, and yes, yeah.
He loves it. And it's like, this book is so simple, but he loves counting the pumpkins with us. He loves meowing to the kitty cat. He loves pointing to the moon. I mean, it's so fun. So, okay, awesome. I'll have to think of that one. When did you start reading The Quiet Cricket? Is it The Quiet Cricket?
The Very Quiet Cricket, yes. We have a stack of books. We have a stack of books that we let Matthew choose from, and he gets on a thing. And right now, it's all Eric Carle. It's all of these. They're animals and animals that make sounds, and right now, that's just his thing.
Nice. Okay, so I want to get into some of the bread and butter of this now, and just kind of paint a picture. Let's actually start transition from the Marine Corps. So what has that journey been like? Because I know it's led you, alluded to it a little bit in the beginning, it's led you to the work you're doing now. But this concept of mental fitness, like that transition from the Marine Corps, I know is part of that, realizing that is the message. Like you're going after researching and studying that message, and how you embrace that in your own life. So can you tell us a little bit about your transition?
Sure. So I left the active duty Marine Corps thinking it would be no big deal. I married another Marine who was also leaving the active duty Marine Corps. Our relationship devolved into something unhealthy very quickly. And you had two people struggling with transition without the skills and the tactics to do that transition in a healthy way. So something like phone a friend and source positive social support. I didn't know how to do that. The only people I was close to were other people with all of the same imbalances that I had and all of the same tendencies to say, let's just work really hard, play even harder, and then everything will work out. That's all you have to do. My attitude, and my partner's attitude towards wellness was, if it's intense and you throw up at the end, that's wellness. We didn't have meditation practices. We didn't practice
Okay.
anything mind body. There was no listen to your body and respect your body. And
Yeah, what's
I was
that?
yeah, I was really far away from sense of purpose and spiritual practice. That had fallen off for me. I think for a lot of us, the Marine Corps becomes our religion when we're in, and I had fallen really far away from that part of my life. So all of the things that I now know from an academic standpoint make a person resilient, all of those things were lacking during one of the most pivotal liminal spaces of my life, my transition from the Marine Corps, and I did it terribly. I had a lot of, I would say, I had domestic violence in my home. I was drinking too much. I was switching from job to job. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And I wasn't talking to anybody about that. I was super sad about this loss of identity, but I didn't know how to reach out and tell somebody I don't have it all together, because I always thought that a good person has a veneer at all times of success, happiness, and having it all together. And I felt like if I lowered that veneer and let anybody in, things would get even worse. And it wasn't until I started doing some volunteer work with a veteran service organization called Team Red, White, and Blue that I talked to another woman veteran, and I told her, my relationship is a mess, and he's drinking and I'm drinking. And what do you think about this? And she laughed at me and she said, me too. All of us, that's normal. We're all struggling. And it was very normalizing, and it inspired a passion to figure out how to prevent that sort of struggle for other people. I didn't want my little brother, or I didn't want the people who stood on the yellow footprints after us to struggle in the same way. If you can learn from my mistakes, it's worth telling you about my mistakes.
Right. That's actually a really common, with everyone I've interviewed, a really big part of their journey, resilient journey, is opening up and asking for help and letting go of the shame by taking action. In some of the work I've read by Peter Levine, who does a lot of work with trauma and studying trauma therapy, it's like, take action. Taking action will help heal the mind. So for me, in my world of physical therapy, I'm like, oh yes, okay. If I do something physical, not like work myself out to throw up,
Yeah.
but like, okay, go ask for help, talk to a friend, be vulnerable, and see what happens. Even though you're scared to do it, see what happens. And most of the time, people have said it was no big deal. It was like, that person relates to me better. And like, I had an athlete on who has a salvaged limb, and he had not exposed his limb for 30 years. And then he decided to do the challenge athlete triathlon, and for the first time exposed his leg, and it wasn't a big thing. Nobody's staring at him differently. It's just, that's him. So I think you touched upon some very important things there, like the mental aspect, and kind of having shame behind decisions we've made, maybe in the transition, or while just, even if you're not a veteran, a lot of us can hold shame, and through actions and just lack of maturity, and not not being aware. And then all of a sudden you realize, well, that shame, if you open up about it and become a little bit more vulnerable and take action, it becomes easier and easier to let go of that.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
been a more common story, actually, with people I've interviewed, and kind of the people I've come across in this world of adaptive athletics, adaptive sports, which in society sees those who are adaptive as disabled, but I don't consider them disabled. I consider them adaptive. Disabling means I can't. Adaptive is I can. We're all adaptive. those that have overcome and gone through major changes in their life, their movement, I consider them most adaptive humans. And really the essence of this podcast, you are an athlete with an invisible wound, right? And we'll get into that, but you can't see it necessarily. But you've had to learn to create this new normal, and you've chosen to do it in a way through learning from your past experiences and build your life around something that's very positive and growth oriented and happy for you and your family. And people can do that. And the power of this stage is that people can listen to you and realize they can do it too. And I want to actually, so you touched upon something in your when you were talking about, so right now you're a professor, right? You're someone that you have to listen to if you're sitting in your class.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Yes, I'm an educator these days.
Yes.
Grade.
So what classes do you teach?
I teach health promotion and public health coursework. So a wide array of classes, everything from biostatistics and how to make data tell a story to community health. How do you go into a community and not go in telling everyone that you know how to fix their well-being issues, but go in as a collaborator and
Right.
create a community of health with stakeholders. So there are specific things that you do and that you learn to do to promote community health. I also teach, and what I really love to teach to undergrads in particular is the personal dimensions of health and wellness. It's really fun to talk to someone who's 18, 19 years old about what holistic health really is, because a lot of them are just like I was at that age. And if they run far and don't eat Twinkies, they count that as health. So it's fun to kind of broaden perspective there.
That's a young Marine mentality too.
Very much so.
Yeah. So you talked about the things that make someone resilient. So before we get into more of your story, so obviously post Marine Corps, there was a new normal for you. Mm-hmm. You got married. You had to get to, that relationship couldn't last. Mm-hmm. You had to find a new normal after that. Had to find a new normal being a professor and an educator now and a speaker. But you talked about what makes things most resilient. And I'm curious as to what you think makes someone the most resilient, what you have found in yourself and maybe in your research.
Well, so in my own experience and in my research on resiliency theory, and there's actually a theory of behavioral change grounded in what helps human beings cultivate resilient traits. There are a couple of things, and the first is the bedrock, and that's positive social support. So not just do you have people that you talk to, but do you have accountability partners? Do you have a diverse group of positive people that bring life and joy and accountability to your day-to-day? And that's the bedrock. From there, I call it self-care, but it's really self-regulation. And here's where the ability to de-escalate your own nervous system comes into play, your ability to manage stress. And then the last thing that makes a person resilient is sense of purpose. And for some people that is religious, and for some people that's secular. You know, for me, it's a spiritual or a religious thing. But that human need for purpose is absolutely important. And if you're practicing all of those things in concert, you are really able to weather a storm. You're very resilient.
Right. The purpose. So I just finished the Book of Joy, which I really loved, by the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. And it talks a lot about that, having purpose is why people, why there's a lot of unhappiness and dissatisfaction in our country and world is because of that lack of purpose. So, and how have you, so through your experience as a Marine and then your transition and just realizing like, hey, we got to focus on this mental fitness stuff. Like this is actually really important. Would you define that as your purpose? Like, is
Absolutely. Once I learned that there are specific techniques, there are things that you can do before you weather stress that make you better able to weather that stressor, I became incredibly passionate about teaching people to do those things. So you can actually teach somebody to broaden their social support. You can learn about your own personality paradigm and improve the way that you interrelate with others. You can definitely teach people about the nervous system and the human stress response, and you can teach them how to de-escalate their own nervous system. You can have conversations about purpose and community impact and connecting with a higher power if that is something that speaks to you. You can teach a person to become more resilient. And once I learned that that was possible, I started talking a lot about mental fitness training, which is the training and the cultivation of resilient traits. I think there are tremendous applications in the military, but
Right.
as a new mom, I would say there are tremendous applications for parents. There are tremendous applications for any type of professional, any person that's trying to navigate the busy day-to-day world of overstimulation and big, long to-do lists. We all need mental fitness training.
Agreed. It wasn't until I had Magnus when, there's mental fitness has been on a journey I've been on as well, since the Marine Corps and since I became aware of it. And it's just been growing each year and learning. But as a new mom, it made some things very imminent for me to change. And those little love bugs, just my little guy, like he's really taught me and is teaching me how to spend my time and how to honor my time, because it's something that's really been a big theme for me, is just, I don't want to waste it. And I feel like a lot of previously in my life, I worried so much about what other people thought, or the to-do lists and the long lists of, just get caught up in the nitty-gritty details of everything that can happen in life, and you lose sight of what's in front of you and being present. And so big part of my mental fitness training is just being present.
Yeah.
And being in tune with, wow, why is my left shoulder up in my ear? What triggered me today? Or why am I holding so much tension? So through these little tactics of using breath work and knowing how to better de-escalate the tension I hold in my body through the nervous system, de-escalating that has really helped me. And I find very powerful because knowing that you can change, like that was a huge thing for me. I never thought that I could kind of control my thoughts, and like I thought these thoughts would like own me and they'd take over, and I wouldn't have power. I feel like I had power in my life for a period of time. And many people who've listened have heard, my story a little bit, but I find it extremely powerful to know I can change.
Yes.
So you just authored a book. It's Bulletproof of the Psyche?
Bulletproofing the Psyche. And it's all of the evidence basis for what I just said, that
Okay.
you can train yourself to become more resilient. If you are the sort of person who says, that's great, Dr. Kate, that's nice that you say that, but I need to see the science, then you want to read Bulletproofing the Psyche. It's
Okay.
kind of the theory and practice and research basis
Okay.
for training yourself.
I will also put a link to that in the show notes.
Oh, great.
So, and then you also authored Brave, Strong, and True, right? This is a couple years ago. And what is that about?
So that book is about finding your way through transition. I use my own story and I use other stories, including yours. I use other people's story as well to talk about really stumbling your way towards resilience. But what I was trying to do in Brave, Strong, True was use narrative to highlight the concept of resilience, because I think stories really help us connect to these bigger concepts. Bulletproofing the Psyche is very science heavy.
Okay.
Brave, Strong, True is a storybook.
I read Brave, Strong, True. So a couple years ago. So I remember you had your brother's story in there. A couple individuals from Team RWB. My memory is crap. Yeah. So for those of you listening, stories can help heal. So if you want to read an excellent book about the transition and just the space that people struggle in, struggle is real, and through struggle, beautiful things can happen.
Mhm.
You're going to want to read this book. So we'll also have a link to that, to Brave, Strong, True, in the show notes.
Thank you.
Um, okay. So you're now living in Alexandria, and you're a professor. You're able to do online work or teach online. So you were
Mhm.
normally doing in-person teaching, and you transitioned to online. Um, and I know, so when 4 or 5 months ago now, I got a call from Kate, and this is kind of a new thing that has gone on in her life. So not only has Kate built this resilient life for herself and self-advocacy to becoming a master of her own body and mind and helping others do the same, but with all of that, 5 months ago, I believe now, I never get my time straight. And sometimes I don't even know what day it is, but I think that's mom brain. I'll just make that excuse. I got a call, and Kate told me she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I, my, my initial response, I got tingle, and my body felt tingly, and I immediately just had flashbacks of my own mother. So my mother had breast cancer too. And so I had that thought of, okay, like, here's a young mom who's just diagnosed with a cancer that I'm fairly familiar with. And how does this happen? And so I want to, cancer is a invisible wound, and many people have cancer. I have another good friend who was recently diagnosed with breast cancer. I have a friend's father who has pancreatic cancer. It's not uncommon. It's an invisible wound that so you can't see it. It's there. It exists. You can't see it. And um, some individuals that I have known and have worked with through physical therapy have handled this very well, resiliently, and others have not. And unfortunately, I'm only on the physical therapy side, so I don't get to spend the time on the mental fitness as much as I'd want to. But Kate, I want to hear just how that journey has been for you as a mom, as a professor.
Well, when my imaging specialist kept calling me to come back after my mammogram, I was in complete denial. And I thought that, well, they know I have good insurance and they just want to keep doing procedures. There can't be anything wrong with me. So it really wasn't until they did biopsies and told me, you have cancer. It has spread to the lymph nodes. We need to do a full CT PET scan to see what's going on. This may not be good, that I even entertained the notion that cancer was possible for me. Um, when I got the diagnosis, my oncologist sat me down and told me that I had stage 4 cancer, meaning it was metastatic and had spread throughout my system. I looked at her. I had no idea what stage 4 cancer meant. And I just looked at her like a deer in the headlights and went, well, what does that mean? And I think she thought I was really dumb or something, because apparently most people know what stage 4 cancer is, and I just didn't. I had no idea. So, of course, the first question you ask is, how long do I have? And she gave me a number. And the number that she gave me does not work for a mother of, at the time, a 3-year-old child. That number was not going to work for me. And I didn't sleep very well for a couple of weeks, and I thought a lot about what I wanted for the future. I thought a lot about what was going on in my life at the time, and I thought a lot about my work. And honestly, it sounds ridiculous, but I had a little bit of a wry smile, because I teach people about weathering storms and weathering stress. And here I was with a world altering stressor, and I was going to get to see how resilient I actually was. They say those who can't teach, and I didn't want to be that kind of a teacher. And at the end of the day, I looked at my husband and I looked at my son, and I knew that I had to get on board with whatever my treatment was going to be, I had to fight as intelligently and as hard as I could possibly fight. And I had to be around as long as I physically can be, because Matthew's only 4. And right now, mommy is his favorite person. So mommy needs to stick around, and mommy needs to be a positive presence in his life. So I didn't have any desire to let it wreck me and make me sad, and you know, I didn't want to wallow in sorrow about the diagnosis.
Yeah.
So I went back to work. I talked to my husband, and we said, you know what's really important to us? We made a move. We changed geography. We now live close to family and dear friends. So we made some radical changes that were positive changes to get ourselves around the right kind of social support. And every day I just try to do something good. I try to do something good, whether that's take a nap or go for a walk. And we got we every 3 months we get scans and we see if there's progression or not. And I'm on a regimen to try to keep progression at bay. But that's my new normal. I have a job. I'm a parent. I live in a place that I love, and I'm really grateful for every day.
Yeah, putting myself in your shoes, and also just my own mother's, like, listening to, because it's very real now, hearing friends of mine who have been diagnosed with cancer, and it can be a very scary thing. Like, I am fully aware that that diagnosis, when you learned about it, was extremely scary. And I almost find the things you can't see the most scary. And
Sure.
just to be real about that, but I've I've thought in some of the things I've read that, when you get that diagnosis and you know that you only have, okay, stage 4, that's the top stage, whatever it is. But what top stage, if there could be
The
a
biggest and best stage. That's what
the
it is.
biggest stage, but what, it's there are thankfully lifestyle things and things you can do. I know research out there, like I mentioned, Dr. Anna Patrick does a lot of work with on research on cancer and eating and lifestyle. But really, it comes down to what you're doing. You changed, found family. You're around family. You made sure you're in a place of support. You're giving yourself space to be. But this with people, like, what is it going to take to change, right? I know that there are things in my life I need to change, and there are things in everyone's life that they would probably like to do to be healthier and happier. But what I'd like to know from you, and you've already kind of explained moving and working more online to be more with your son, but what is the mindset shift for you after being diagnosed and knowing that there is a sentence, like, life is going to end. Actually, life is going to end for everyone, but life may be a while, or it may be short. But what has that done for your psyche?
Well, first, it was incredibly humbling, because what you just said is true. Before I got diagnosed with cancer, there was an end date on my days. And after I got diagnosed with cancer, there was an end date on my days. Nothing had really changed. That's the human condition.
Right.
But after diagnosis, when I started really looking at how I was spending my time, there were several areas where I was giving a lot of time for very little reward. And it wasn't necessarily in alignment with my core key, most important things. And so the cancer diagnosis gave me the impetus to sit down and do what I should have done. I should have been doing on a yearly basis all the time, and really look at, are we where we want to be? Are we doing what we want to be doing? Is this trip really necessary? Is this work project a good thing that's going to add value to my happiness and to our future? Or is it kind of a drain and a time waster? And I had to put the metric against everything that was getting my time with a new sense of urgency. You talk a lot about that, and I read your stuff about valuing time, and I always am amazed that you don't have cancer forcing you to do that, and yet you're making that prioritization. I wish I wish I had always lived my life that way. And
Well,
I'm going to do that in the future.
you know, there's a reason for that. It hasn't always been that way. My father always beat down my throat, like, Teresa, value your time, value your time. Your time is the most precious commodity. And I was always like, yeah. So, and I'm on a ball, by the way. That's why I'm like bopping up and
Oh, I
down.
wondered why you were moving.
Yeah, sorry. I'm on a Swiss ball. But when my father passed away 4 years ago, it just kind of hit me over the head. It's like, I was always someone, I thankfully for work, I could travel and like I could teach courses. I taught for the CrossFit movement and mobility course for a few years. Like I could teach courses on the East Coast, and then I could go visit him. And I always made the time for him, and I always try to make the time for family, because I can be a little bit more flexible. But when he passed, it was like, it hit me over the head, like, what am I doing with my time? And it made me sit down and think, do I really want to do patient care every day, all day? Do I really want to be doing these free speaking endeavors all over? Or do I want to, give it some value? Do I really want to hang out with these people? Do I really like them? Like, do I really want to be in touch or do this with this person? Because it doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't make me feel good. And so it really made me become hyper aware, because now for me, like, not having a mother and a father and being a new parent, and just we don't have a big family, and my brothers and I are closer than we used to be, but we don't live close together, and I don't really plan on moving up to Sacramento anytime soon. But you never know. But I think it was that moment, that time, when kind of just hit me like, Teresa, you speak about taking ownership of your health, but you need to own your time too. And these things you're doing aren't making you happy. And maybe some of it, but like, these people aren't making you happy. This situation isn't, so choose to change it. And so that started shifting me into just being more mindful in that time space, because I missed my dad. I miss my family. I have always a hard time with loss in general. It takes me a moment. It takes me sometimes short moments and sometimes a lot of moments, long moments, to get over loss, whether it's a friend leaving town or saying goodbye, or actual physical loss. And that's something I'm constantly working through. But I do know, and it comes back to this conversation around death, I know I'm going to die. And it could be tomorrow. It could be a week. It could be 50 years. I don't know. But how am I spending my time? Because I want to look back, if I do get the chance to be on a deathbed, and talk to my family and say, I did everything that I wanted to do the way I wanted to do it. And I was around people I loved. And I heard my dad talk about that so much in his sermons and whatnot. But of course it was like, oh, that's cool, until 4 years ago, when I was hit with a major loss. And it was like, yeah, okay, we're all going to die, and I'm going to die. And am I doing what I want the way I want it with who I want?
Right. I think one of the most important things in life is that who I want, the people that you surround yourself with. And that's why we were willing to make some fairly radical professional and life changes and pack a moving van. And it's been wonderful
Right.
to see my son play with cousins and to interact with friends and family that, we really value, has been very important.
Yeah. So that's something, talking to you 6 months ago, and then seeing your journey, whether it was through email, texts, little bits online, here, there, you really are embracing this. You're not defined by your diagnosis, but what you're defined as, the value of time. You're valuing your time so much more. And 99.9% of the humans in America don't do that. Right. And I think that that's not a researched percentage, by the way, but it is a lot of people. Like, because we go through life, it's so easy to just, I'll wait till I'm fitter, I'll wait till I'm retired. You put things off.
Sure.
And what if everyone was just to put a stone in their shoe and say, all right, what do I need to make myself be around the people that I love, and or at least within a distance that helps, a community, doesn't have to be family, it could just be a tribe. What is it going to take to be part of a tribe, and doing the things you love, or at least doing the things you find fulfilling, because we can't love everything we do. What's it going to take for people? And so I think for everyone listening to this, whether it's, from the experience I had with my father, it took losing my father to say, okay, wake the F up and take ownership of this time of yours, to your situation, like your life in the next many years, I pray, will be the best life you've had yet.
And that's the plan. And I especially want to appreciate my time as a parent. There are so many times when you're potty training and not sleeping where you're just focused on how hard it is. And I'm
Right.
really trying to appreciate the times good and bad and easy and hard, and revel in the great privilege that it is to be Matthew's mom.
Yes. And that's a beautiful thing I've seen with you too. And you're a few years ahead of being a mom, and just in the sense of Matthew's 4 and Magnus is a year and a half, but watching you when you first had him and see that change in you too has been beautiful. Like, we were both Marines, and I actually didn't know if I had any maternal instincts in me at all. And I know we talked about family stuff a little bit, but it was to see the joy it caused for you and created in your life was amazing, and how much fun you were having with it. By no means has it been easy. But I have experienced the same with this little guy. It's like a little light bulb in my life. And he's like, I call him my little movement master. He teaches me a lot, and he's hilarious. But it has brought tremendous joy. And I'm like, part of my mental fitness now is treating myself the way I treat him, gently and kindly, with kindness. So yeah, I'm excited to see how your life just continues to blossom and unfold, Kate.
Thank you.
Truly.
Thank you. And I really appreciate the chance to talk about this. It's a lot of people don't ask you about cancer. It's a word nobody's allowed to say. And once you get past the period of sleeplessness while you're wrestling with the diagnosis, it's really nice to be able to share.
Yeah.
To be able to share with somebody that this is happening, and no, it's not the biggest thing in my life. It's not the definition of it's not my new identity.
Right.
But
I
we
think
can talk about it. It's a real thing. We can discuss it.
That's crucial. A big theme of conversation we've had, whether it's someone with a missing limb or a minor injury to these major, invisible wounds like cancer, stage 4 cancer, you're not your diagnosis. You're what you see in an image and on paper doesn't have to be your function. There is some things you can't control with it, but there's a lot you can, like where you live, who you hang out with, what you eat, what you do with your body, and all of those things, like, you can control. And so focus on those good things.
Absolutely. And it's empowering to do that. That's not a chore. That's an empowering thing to do. It gives you agency. It gives you choice.
Now, I have a couple more questions for you. One is around just overall, like, functional fitness. So having cancer now, how has that changed your movement? I know you love yoga, and I know you've enjoyed CrossFit a time or two, but what have you felt changed, and what have you been able to do about it to help you?
So I've had to lower the intensity level a little bit. My energy is lower.
Not throwing up.
No, yeah, I'm not going out and running half marathons. So I'm doing more walking, more yoga, and then I'm doing some some lighter weight training. And I'm actually going to this gym now that you would laugh. It's circuit style work, but it's not CrossFit. They call it Star Fit. And it makes
Oh,
me laugh
cool.
because it's like a step down from CrossFit. It's much calmer than CrossFit. So that's
I
what I
like
would say.
calm. I
I've
like
taken
calm.
down the intensity level several notches.
Good. And so so a little less intense. Are you still doing yoga too?
For sure. I find a lot of peace and prayer and personal time on the yoga mat.
Okay.
And I love a good studio. It's just such a luxurious place. It feels like going to a spa.
Right. Yes. Agreed. Okay, so you're doing fitness, you're doing some weight training, circuit style,
Hmm.
and yoga. Is there anything physiologically besides lowering the intensity? Have you noticed just the ability to cardiovascularly? Has that changed for you? Is that
Yeah, I have nausea, dizziness. I have probably a little bit less cardio capacity, but not it's not a deal breaker. None of that is a deal breaker.
okay? Awesome. And I think that's good for people to hear. I think you mentioned before we even started recording, it's like being pregnant, the
It's a
awful,
lot like being pregnant. All my symptoms are a lot like first trimester pregnancy. So all of the moms listening are probably going, "Oh," right
yeah.
now.
But really it's like, okay, so despite that though, you still need to move your body, right?
Mhm.
Movement is life, and doesn't mean you have to go out and puke or be super intense, but getting yourself into an environment where you're moving and you're supported, because even though, you know, breast cancer is breast cancer, you need to use your body to get around in life. And the more
Sure.
sedentary you are, and that this is can be what happens is when you get such a major terminal illness, right? There's probably a lack of motivation, and I've not with you, but with others, I've seen a lack of motivation to like, why try now?
Mm.
And but that's the thing, like it can potentially help also elongate and create more longevity in your life, if not
Absolutely.
more enjoyment, because you're strong and you can do things.
Absolutely.
um
It feels more important now than it did before. I mean, before it was about running at a certain speed or,
right,
weighing a certain amount. And now it's about let's work on our bone strength. Let's
right,
work on staying limber and ambulatory so I can keep up with a 4-year old as
right,
long as
yes.
possible.
Agreed. More important things now, actually.
Yes.
So the last question for you, well, okay, I always do this. Two more questions. They're short. What advice would you give someone in your shoes?
Find people that you can talk to. So whether it's people that are trusted friends or it's a formal support group, find people that care and that you can discuss it with.
Okay. Find that community and be vulnerable. And then the last question is, because this is the My New Normal podcast, what does your new normal look like now on a daily basis? And you can kind of morph all the days together, but like, what does a typical day look like? Morning to evening.
So my new normal is I get up and I spend time with my son. I get him through his morning routine. Once I get him to school where he absolutely loves to go and it's kind of a joy to drop him off because he's so excited about it. I'll do something physical, whether it's a walk or, get on the spin bike or whatever it is that I'm going to do. And then I do purpose driven work that makes me happy. And I take more breaks than I used to take. I used to be kind of a machine, and I've slowed down a little bit. So I have breaks for rest and breaks to eat, and there's no powering through anymore because then I get sick. I wind up really, really sick if I do that. I've done that on a couple of days and paid the price. So I, at a reasonable pace, do work that I love, and then I go pick up my son again. And then we do a family dinner and laugh at each other.
I love it. That's awesome, Kate. I love it. I love listening to everyone's like normal days. They're simple, but usually there's joy in there. And it sounds like every aspect of your day is very purposeful and somewhat joy-filled for you,
Yeah.
which I hope anyone listening, so if you're listening to this, hopefully this helps you create a change in your life right now, not next year, not 2 years from now, but right the heck now, and embrace these moments, because you do never know. And if we want to find, if the listeners want to find more about you, where can they go?
So my website is dockate.com, and that's
Okay.
the best place to find me.
Okay. I'll put that in the show notes as well. But it has been a sheer joy getting to talk with you over the internet
Yes.
on this podcast, and just knowing you, Kate. You're a lovely human. Anyone listening, please share this with someone you love, because I know you know someone with a diagnosis of cancer of any kind. So everyone knows someone. So definitely share and make the change in your life you need right now.
Thank you so much.